All right, it is day 21 on the 31st of October 2017 of my hypersomnia video diary. It is also by that note Halloween, so happy Halloween, everyone. I don't have any scary ghosts or any costume to wear or any candy to hand out, sorry, but um, I guess, have information candy to hand out, so. Um, Pardon me. Following up yesterday's yesterday's diary on the effects of taking Adderall and how do I feel taking Adderall for hypersomnia, and I noted that I had been taking Adderall for around 7 years and amphetamines to treat hypersomnia in general for roughly 20 years. So I thought today it would be a good time to go through, excuse me, how I feel or what I feel or any long-term adverse or positive or any sort of effect from taking amphetamines for 20 years, what that does to your body and your brain, and what does it look like in a person. Because maybe if you're young, in early 20s, and you've just got diagnosed with hypersomnia, maybe you are concerned about, what the or lifelong effects of amphetamine are. So I can speak as a good case study for someone who is 40 and who has been taking amphetamines for, again, about 20 years. Um, just going to quickly go through what I found on some general medical websites as the long-term effect of amphetamines, and then I'll kind of discuss that and just give my own feedback. Paranoia, hallucinations, violent behavior, cravings for the drug, compulsive drug-seeking behavior, convulsions, loss of coordination, obsessive behavior, respiratory problems, cardiovascular complications, um, and that's the gist. Also, the getting into the neurological aspects, it would be the biggest one is damage to the dopamine neuron receptors, and as well as potentially the norepinephrine and the serotonin. But the most damage, at least that they can see from overdose and from users of very high level of amphetamine, they see neurological damage to the brain in several different areas. But the biggest and most, I guess, impactful one is on the dopamine receptors and their functioning. So I want to add on to that the respiratory or the cardiovascular complications. They say that they're very similar to those that are just associated with both normal aging and amphetamine use, but um, in it may appear earlier in adults who are receiving maintenance amphetamine treatment. So what they're saying is it may cause cardiovascular problems in the sense of rapid heart rates, and you can have hardening of the arteries, and you can have hypertension, which is the biggest one, which is high blood pressure. That's the biggest one they've been concerned about. And I did go through a stint where I had high blood pressure while I was taking dexedrine, which is just the dextroamphetamine. And I was put on high blood pressure medication, propranolol, 80 milligrams, for a few years. And my blood pressure at that time was always something like 150 over 110 or something like that, or 100. I may be wrong or a little bit off on the lower number, but right around 150 on the upper. So that is definitely an effect of taking amphetamines for several years. That was about 10 years ago that I had the high blood pressure, and then I again, it was, I think maybe I took the medicine for 3 to 4 years, and I did notice that upon switching to Adderall, that wasn't an issue, and which is interesting because Adderall containing the dextroamphetamine 75% and the levoamphetamine 25%. So with that extra levoamphetamine, that is thought to raise cardiovascular tension and things like that. So, but again, interestingly, I experienced those things on just dextroamphetamine alone or dexedrine. Some other, let's see, they can see in heavy abusers the reduced availability of the transporters for dopamine, serotonin, and the vesicular monoamine. They see 30 to 50% reduction in dopamine, and that, in terms of, what does that mean if you have a 30 to 50% reduction in dopamine? Typically, someone with Parkinson's disease has a 80 to 90% reduction. So what that means is, or what to be concerned about there is, and again, this is in abusers of amphetamine. This isn't in just normal, prescribed medication. But if you do get to a larger level of dosage, milligrams per day, and you haven't taken it for an extended period of time, then we have to look at some of these and see, is this possibly, are these possible outcomes for someone that's just taking a high level at a prescribed amount? They do note the reason this is interesting is because if you have that 30 to 50% reduction, but you couple that with aging, then you are potentially more susceptible to things like Parkinson's disease. If it, I'm not sure if that's genetic or not. I know that it can be caused from various environmental and biological factors, but that's kind of definitely something to be, concerned about. So the reason, the reason that people will be on amphetamine for a long time, and the reason that the dose gets increased is because, the body naturally builds up a tolerance. And that would be the same thing as if you drink a lot of coffee, maybe at first you can just have half a cup, and that wakes you up, and you're stimulated up and going, and you drink a half a cup for a while, a week or two, and then you realize, I feel this. I feel like I originally did. If I just drink a whole cup, drinking a half cup doesn't really wake me up anymore. So then you go up to a whole cup, and same thing. I don't know. Tolerance happens in everything, especially things like, pardon me, especially things like taking prescription pills like opiates and all sorts of drugs and alcohol and cigarettes and nicotine. Everything has a your body develops a tolerance level. Well, that's the tolerance of amphetamines is a stronger one, in the sense that especially over many years of taking it, your tolerance has gotten so high that that's why at this point I have to take that break every month. And that would be another long-term effect of being on amphetamines, in that it's the ever increasing milligram dosage to achieve the original level of awakeness or awareness. But that doesn't happen anymore. So I don't have to keep so I don't have to increase the milligrams too much, consistently. I do the break, and that's to kind of reset that tolerance. So it's definitely a negative effect of having to take the amphetamines, in that your body does have that tolerance, so you're going to have to fight it. I want to touch back on the reported medical, long-term use effects. When I mentioned paranoia, hallucinations, and all those things, no paranoia, no hallucinations. My behavior has not become more violent, or it is not violent, and has not become more violent in any way. When they say cravings for the drug, well, I mean, for sure, the week that I take off of taking amphetamine, I do, wish that I could take it, and there's times where, yeah, like if I'm not taking it, for sure I have a craving for it, but um, I don't see that. You can have a craving for coffee, so cravings for the drug is kind of a null effect. Compulsive drug-seeking behavior, no, that has not happened. Convulsions, never had any. Loss of coordination, I'm still very agile and reflex is good, no loss of coordination. Obsessive behavior, I will disagree with that one too. I never had the feeling that I've become obsessive in any way. Respiratory problems, I did mention, I felt as though taking amphetamine and Adderall produce more phlegm or more mucus in my lungs. So I would note that definitely. I've seen that more and more over time, that, it's like my lungs have a little bit of fluid in them. Cardiovascular complications, I noted that I did have high blood pressure for several years until I got that under control. And again, switching to Adderall, I felt as though helped that. So though, that's really, to sum it up, that's really it. I don't see any cognitive depletion from taking amphetamines. If anything, it's improved my cognitive ability overall. I don't see any negatives in terms of becoming some sort of addict to the point where I'm going to go steal, or something that tends to happen with people who and eventually become heroin addicts, is that they were prescribed painkillers and opiates to begin with, and then they kept taking those, and then when those weren't enough, they couldn't get those, then they become heroin addicts. If for some reason there would be no Adderall, or it was discontinued, or somehow there was a cutoff from amphetamines, it wouldn't make me go use methamphetamine. I wouldn't. That's not the. So that type of drug-seeking behavior wouldn't happen. And actually, important to note, it was actually, I want to say 6, 7, maybe 8 years ago, there was a shortage of amphetamine. I don't know if anyone who has been on amphetamine remembers this, but it took several months. You couldn't get amphetamines for a few months, and the manufacturer I'm not sure what happened, but it took about 3 months, and no one would have them. It was terrible, but that didn't, in that 3-month time, it didn't make me go use methamphetamine or cocaine, or become some sort of like crackhead or anything. So just to reiterate, I don't feel that any of the negative effects I've mentioned that I've experienced while taking amphetamine would merit not to take it. Again, I've said this several times throughout my videos. Amphetamine is the only medicine that I feel really worked 80 to 90% of the time. All the rest were below 50, so it was a hit or miss. So again, I feel the side effects of it are tolerable, and even over time they're tolerable. More, and even if I get a bout of insomnia or something like that, it's so random and so rare that it's almost like a natural thing, like it should happen, that you occasionally get insomnia. So that's going to be the end of my video today. Feel free to ask any further questions. If I wasn't clear on something, or you need more info about any of the long-term use effects, please let me know, and I'll post in the comments, or send me a message, and I'll be sure to answer. So thanks again. Happy Halloween 2017, and I will see you for day 22 tomorrow.